The new phase of the trial, Job's intimate suffering. The second chapter of the book of Job leads us into an even deeper understanding of the mystery of human suffering and the complexity of God's plan. After being confronted with the devastation of his possessions and the loss of his children, Job, surprisingly, remained steadfast in his integrity. His response of worship amid ruin was a powerful testimony of his unconditional faith. However, heaven prepares a new test, even more intimate and painful, designed to affect not only his external life, but his own body and soul. This is not a simple punishment. It is the continuation of a cosmic challenge that questions the very nature of faith. In this chapter, we are presented with the second blow from the heavens, a wound that bleeds beyond the skin, burns, and eats away at his flesh. Job is struck by a terrible disease, covering him from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. It is a physical pain that no doctor could cure, an affliction that symbolizes human fragility and challenges our understanding of pain and justice. But what does this physical suffering reveal about faith, perseverance, and the nature of the relationship between man and the divine? The portal of the unknown invites us to explore every nuance of this trial, understanding that Job's suffering is not only a punishment, but also a test intended to reveal the strength of his soul. It is a journey to understand how true faith endures even when the body succumbs to pain, human fragility, and the resilience of the soul. The second chapter of Job opens with a new celestial scene, an echo of the first, where the accuser returns to God, questioning the man's integrity once more. His provocation is now even sharper. Skin for skin, and all that a man has, he will give for his life. The insinuation is that Job only maintained his faith because his own life and health were untouched. God then allows the accuser to test him once again with the restriction that Job's life be spared. The narrator describes the wounds that appear on Job's body as a symbol of the invisible dimension of the divine test. Pain becomes a central element in the narrative, representing not only physical suffering, but also spiritual and emotional anguish. Job's disease isolates him from society, makes him despised, and strikes at layers of his existence, often hidden from the world's eyes. This chapter challenges us to understand that it's not measured by the absence of pain, but by the ability to maintain hope and integrity, even when suffering seems unbearable. It is an invitation to look beyond the surface, to question how faith withstands the pain that disfigures and the isolation that empties the soul. We invite you to like, comment, and share your reflections on this chapter. Every detail of this narrative is an invitation to reflect on the mysteries that heaven holds and on the strength of faith amid pain. For the story of Job mirrors our own struggles and questions, the unexpected response and the essence of faith. Job's reaction to the physical pain consuming him from head to toe is one of the most dramatic and revealing moments of the chapter. Instead of cursing God or surrendering to despair, his initial stance is one of remarkable resilience. The wound eating away at his flesh symbolizes suffering that transcends the physical, and his attitude demonstrates a faith that goes beyond human logic. He sits among ashes, a picture of profound mourning, and scrapes his sores with a piece of broken pottery. There are no cries of revolt, only a resigned acceptance of his condition. This forces us to reflect on the true meaning of fidelity and devotion. Genuine integrity is not measured in times of comfort, but when pain threatens to erase everything one believes. Job's faith reveals itself not as a shield against suffering, but as a force that allows one to endure it. The portal of the unknown leads us to contemplate how this ancient narrative still resonates today. In every moment when humans face extreme adversity, whether through devastating illness, loss, or injustice, Job's challenge illuminates the path. His story inspires us to question whether our faith is conditional or if it can endure even when all external evidence points to abandonment. Job becomes a model of perseverance, showing that true strength lies not in the absence of pain, but in the ability to maintain dignity and trust in the divine, even when hope seems completely absent. The temptation of despair and the resilience of the spirit. In this chapter, the figure of Job's wife emerges as a mirror of the common human reaction to intense suffering. Her voice is harsh, almost desperate, echoing the thoughts of many who find themselves in similar situations. Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die. She suggests that surrender would be the easiest path, the only possible relief from such overwhelming pain. Her words represent the temptation to abandon faith when logic fails to provide answers. However, Job resists this provocation, demonstrating that true faith does not yield to external pressure, even when it comes from a loved one. He rebukes her, recalling God's sovereignty. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil? This dialogue reveals that the trial is not only physical or spiritual, but also social and emotional, affecting the closest bonds. Job's suffering extends to his relationship with his wife, testing intimacy and understanding. He stands alone in his faith. The Portal of the Unknown explores this hidden dimension, showing how Job's second chapter goes beyond the story of one man becoming a profound study of resilience and character in the face of invisible forces. His stance teaches us that authentic faith is forged in the solitude of suffering, when the voices around us invite us to give up. Job's story is an invitation to examine the nature of our own faith. Is it strong enough to endure not only pain, but also the despair of those closest to us? The wound as a metaphor and the awakening of spiritual strength. The wound that bleeds on Job is far more than a physical affliction. It is a powerful metaphor. Every pain, every itch, and every burn consuming him from head to toe symbolizes the subtle and brutal attacks that life, the world, and, as the narrative suggests, the invisible enemy can inflict on our faith. Job's disease is not an accident, but a symbol of human vulnerability in the face of forces beyond our control. Yet paradoxically, it is in this very vulnerability that spiritual strength is revealed. The pain isolates him, but it also compels an intimate encounter with himself and the divine. The chapter leads us to understand that physical pain, no matter how overwhelming, can awaken profound reflections on purpose, trust in God, and the essence of integrity. When all that is external is stripped away, wealth, family, reputation, and internal pain becomes unbearable, what remains is the essence of the person. By enduring this suffering, Job proves that his faith was unconditional, not based on possessions or comfort. The Portal of the Unknown emphasizes that Job's story is not merely a historical account, but an eternal lesson on facing losses and sufferings that go beyond what the body can endure, striking the soul and testing one's connection with the divine. The narrative teaches us that resilience is not the absence of pain, but the ability to find meaning and strength amidst it. The boundless provocation and the active stance of faith. The accuser's insistence on challenging Job shows that the trial has no predetermined limits. After failing to break Job's integrity through material losses, the accuser returns to test the faith of the most upright man on earth, this time attacking his very body. This reveals that the true test of faith involves multiple dimensions: the body, mind, emotions, and spirit. The story brings us to a deeper understanding of suffering, showing that it can touch every layer of our existence. God, by allowing the test to occur, does not abandon Job, but establishes the invisible rules of the challenge. His life must be spared. This detail is crucial, as it demonstrates that God remains in control even amid chaos. The chapter teaches that faith is not merely passive endurance, but an active posture of trust, even when the purpose of pain is not understood. Job's attitude of not cursing God and accepting both the good and the evil from his hand is an example of faith in action, a trust that persists even in the absence of answers. The Portal of the Unknown reveals that this narrative mirrors the experiences of all who face incomprehensible suffering, reminding us that there is a spiritual dimension where human integrity is examined. Job's story encourages the pursuit of a faith that is not merely reactive, but proactive, a faith that stands firm in the certainty of a greater plan, even when we cannot see it, the community's gaze, and the burden of isolation. The second chapter of Job shows us that extreme suffering is not purely an individual experience. It reverberates and transforms the perception of the community and the world around the sufferer. Although the primary focus of this chapter is physical pain, the social consequences and emotional isolation become evident and painful. The sight of Job, sitting in ashes, covered with wounds from head to toe, is disturbing. Those who witness his condition may react in various ways, with fear, fearing that the same calamity might strike them. With judgment, searching for some hidden flaw or sin to justify the tragedy, or with superficial compassion, lacking the capacity to truly comprehend the depth of his suffering. Job's trial, therefore, extends beyond his own body. It becomes a mirror for society, reflecting human discomfort in the face of the inexplicable. The portal of the unknown invites us to reflect on our own reaction to the suffering of others. What do we do when we see someone experiencing pain that we cannot understand? The faith of a person like Job's can inspire or challenge everyone around them, even when no one fully understands what is happening. His resilience can be seen as a powerful testimony or as incomprehensible stubbornness. The narrative shows us that the burden of isolation, the feeling of being misunderstood by those around us, is one of the cruelest dimensions of extreme suffering. Faith as a social challenge and the role of friends. The presence of the community, even if indirect at the beginning of the chapter, is fundamental to the unfolding story. Job's suffering places him in a position of estrangement, and his faith becomes a social challenge. He does not fit the conventions of the time, which associated prosperity with righteousness and suffering with sin. By enduring pain without cursing God, Job breaks with expectations and becomes an enigma to those who know him. It is his stance that summons the arrival of his three friends, who, upon hearing of his tragedy, come to comfort and sympathize with him. This moment, marking the transition to the following chapters, is crucial for understanding the social dimension of the trial. The portal of the unknown reminds us that a person's faith and integrity are tested not only internally, but also in the way they interact with the outside world. How Job faces physical pain and isolation becomes a public testimony that challenges the perspective of his friends and, by extension, society as a whole. His story teaches us that one person's resilience can become a light of hope or a stumbling block for those around them. The narrative of Job, therefore, invites us to examine our own empathy and the way we respond not only to our own trials, but also to those that affect others. The resilience of Job, a faith that defies logic. Job's endurance in the face of his wife's pressure and the physical pains consuming him is one of the most striking and revealing points of the second chapter. His reaction creates a stark contrast to what most people would do in his place. While his wife, in her pain and despair, urges him to curse God and give up, Job remains steadfast. He does not seek immediate answers for his suffering. He does not demand explanations for the inexplicable, and he does not succumb to despair. Instead, he maintains his integrity and trust in God, even when his life is stripped of all that was good. This chapter teaches us a fundamental lesson about the nature of true faith. Faith is not the absence of doubt or suffering. On the contrary, it is the ability to remain firm and unshakable when all circumstances seem to conspire against hope. Job's faith is a faith that resists, persists, and paradoxically grows stronger amid adversity. He shows us that the true test of our belief is not in moments of comfort and prosperity, but in the ability to worship God even in the ashes, when physical and emotional pain seems unbearable. The multidimensional test of human faith. The portal of the unknown deepens this analysis, showing that the narrative of Job goes beyond the personal story of a man. It is a study of how human faith responds to tests that challenge the body, mind, and spirit simultaneously. Job's trial was not one-dimensional. It was a coordinated attack that struck his wealth, his family, his health, and ultimately his reputation. His endurance was not merely an act of physical perseverance, but a demonstration of mental and spiritual strength. As we face life's tests, Job's story offers a lens through which to understand our own suffering. It invites us to ask, is my faith strong enough to endure when physical pain consumes me, when despair haunts me, and when those around me urge me to give up? Job's resilience is a testament that genuine faith is a force that transcends logic and human understanding. It reminds us that even in the midst of darkness, the light of trust in God can continue to shine. Integrity forged in suffering. At the end of the second chapter of Job, the impact of the second blow is overwhelming and complete. Job is covered with painful sores, a vision that symbolizes the loss of his health and the ruin of his external life. His social and emotional life is profoundly shaken as his wife pressures him to curse God, and his friends, who come to comfort him, find him in a state that leaves them in silence for 7 days. Yet, amid all this devastation, his faith remains unshakable. The narrative sets a pattern for subsequent challenges, showing that human integrity is measured not only by prosperity, but by the ability to withstand tests that seem insurmountable. Job's story forces us to question our own definition of success and blessing, inviting us to see that a person's true wealth lies in character, not in possessions. The portal of the unknown leaves us with the reflection that the deepest sufferings often do not come to destroy, but to reveal hidden layers of the soul and faith that only emerge in the face of extreme trials. Job's pain is a kind of purifying fire, burning away everything superficial and leaving only the essence of his devotion. His story teaches us that, amid darkness, the light of faith can shine most intensely. The journey continues. Pain, faith, and Mystery Job is not merely a historical figure. He is a symbol of the human condition. His story is an invitation to enter a universe where pain, faith, and mystery intertwine in ways that challenge our understanding. The end of the second chapter marks the beginning of a new phase of the drama, where silence and suffering will give way to a profound and complex discussion about divine justice and the nature of suffering. Preparing for the continuation of this story is to enter uncharted territory, where questions are more important than immediate answers. The portal of the unknown challenges us to look at our own lives and ask, when confronted with suffering, do we respond with faith or bitterness? Job's story illuminates the true meaning of devotion, showing that it resides in unconditional trust in God, even when his purpose is not understood.